Picking up where we left off. We were doing Hamlet's Soliloquy, Act 1, Scene 2, on page 1102, beginning, and I'm going to back up to the beginning of the soliloquy, line 129, which probably means we won't finish Act 1 today. So, oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. And we talked about the difference between this reading and the first folio reading of solid, and the difference between sullied and solid. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Canon is law. O God, God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Notice what he's saying there. What's meant by all the uses of this world?
Maybe everything the world has to offer.
Bingo. All the goods that this world has to offer are what for Hamlet?
Useless.
Useless. His words, weary, stale, flat, unprofitable. That kind of describes what? What kind of person? Now,
Like depressed.
yeah, he's often described as a melancholic, like Jaques was in As You Like It.
It's nihilist.
It's closer to nihilism. The suicidal person sees nothing of worth in living. That's what Hamlet's describing here. Okay? This is a soliloquy. This is revealing what he really thinks. And the play's just begun. Okay? Fie on it, fie. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. And he uses that image of a garden. And the image of a garden is very, very key, really, in all Western literature. And you could argue, I think, in Western literature, it goes back to the original garden, the Garden of Eden, so to speak. But here it's what? It's unweeded. What's happened to the garden? It's overgrown. The weeds have overcome the good plants. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. And if I'm directing the play, when Hamlet says that, he points to the door that Claudius and Gertrude just went out of. Not how quickly are those lines said? A couple of minutes at most? Things rank and gross possess it merely. Well, who possesses Denmark? Claudius. Then it should come to this. What's the this? What follows? But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much. So, I said last Thursday, Hamlet Sr.'s been dead somewhere between 2 and 4 months. Hamlet says 2 months, not so much. So, not even 2 months. So excellent a king that was to this, and again, he points to where Claudius just left. That was to this Hyperion, god of the sun, to a satyr. What's a satyr?
A half goat, half human.
So, in the Renaissance notion, I think we've talked about this, of the great chain of being, have we talked about this?
Yes.
Right? Everything, every created thing exists connected in a link. Think of the circle of life, Simba again. Okay? God is above that because God's not created, but everything from the highest angelic being all the way down to the lowest microscopic subatomic piece of whatever it is, it's all connected. And at the top, well, let's go ahead and do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At the top, you have the angelic realm, which according to Dionysius Areopagite, there are 9 orders of angelic beings, cherubim and seraphim at the top, and just everyday garden variety angel down at the bottom. And then there is humanity, and according to some people, there are orderings of humanity, because who comes atop? Always, no matter what culture. Kings, queens, all the way down to peasant, slave, okay? And then you have the animal kingdom. Who's the king of beasts? Lions. Who's the king of the air? Eagles. King of the oceans? Whales, or according to the Old Testament, Leviathan, etc., etc. And so each one of those has its own corresponding, hierarchy, all the way down to get to the lowest. So you have angels, humanity, beasts. Nobody really knows. Some say sea monster. Some say Leviathan is just a whale. Okay. Some translations of Jonah have Jonah swallowed not by a giant fish or a giant whale, but by Leviathan. Okay. So, he compares his father to Hyperion. Well, mythology figures in this too, right? Because who's up here? Zeus. Actually, this is where Greek mythology kind of fails, because what came before Zeus? Kronos, but Zeus overthrew Kronos, so whoever the highest god is at the time, while the sun is getting ready to knock him off, okay? So he's up here, right? Where is Claudius? He's not even here. He's border. He's huistly. He's buman. He's beast and human. Okay? And you'll see a lot in Shakespeare, both in the plays and in the sonnets, about talking about our better natures. We're going to see that phrase in this play. Appealing to our better natures, that is, our angelic side, as opposed to our worser natures, our beastly side. Why? C.S. Lewis describes humanity as amphibians. We are both beastly, wet-like, and we are also angelic. How so? Humanity is physical and spiritual, has a soul, if you accept the existence of the soul. So, he compares his dead father, sun god, to this subhuman thing, Claudius. It's now shacking up with his mother. I used shacking up intentionally, by the way. So loving to my mother, my father was, that he might not be teemed, the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. He didn't want her to go out on a windy day so that the wind wouldn't burn her face, if you've ever suffered windburn. Not why she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. Increase of appetite. He aroused her appetite, not sex. It's not what he's talking about. He's just talking about the company of his father for his mother, as if that appetite was increased just by being with her, or her just by being with him. I don't know, maybe you've experienced that state of love where just being with the other person is like the greatest thing in the world. Let me not think on it. Frailty, thy name is woman. I've got a book in my office called The Miracle of Language by a guy named, I highly recommend it, a guy named Richard Lederer. Used to be headmaster of a boys prep school somewhere in New Hampshire, Vermont. He wrote a book called The Miracle of Language. He wrote a bunch of books about language and such. And in it, he has a chapter called A Man of Fire, New Words. And the chapter is all about Shakespeare. And he makes the quip in there that, he took a group of students to see a Shakespeare play somewhere, and they watched Hamlet. And a student made a comment about Hamlet being full of quotations and cliches. Well, what did he mean by that? He meant the single play Hamlet has given us so many phrases in the English language that we use all the time, and yet we're not aware that they come from Hamlet, such as, frailty, thy name is woman. What's he mean? Frailty equals woman. Frailty. We think of frailty as being like frail. Well, what's another word for frail? Weak. Weak. Weak how? In reference to his mother. If it moves, she'll jump it. Why? Claudius. So, if you're casting this, and you're casting it, let's say, from Hamlet's perspective, I'm not saying you have to. Should Claudius be handsome? No, he shouldn't. Should Hamlet Sr., when the ghost of Hamlet Sr. comes out, yeah, he should be handsome. Oh, okay, maybe a little rotted, piece of flesh missing here and there. Okay? A little month, or so, somewhere between a month and 4 months, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body, like Naomi, all tears, why she was just wearing those shoes to Dad's funeral, and now she wears them marching off to her bed. My father's brother. But no more like my father than I to Hercules within a month. Ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her galled eyes, she married. Now we get to how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable are all the uses of this world. Is it that Hamlet really is considering suicide? No. What's wrong? Freud was right about some things. Hamlet's got mommy issues. I don't mean Hamlet wants to replace Claudius in bed with his mother. Freud was totally, in my opinion, wrong about all that stuff. But he does have issues with his mother, one, being a sexual being. I think he does have issues with that. That he realizes, mom's having sex. And it's not with Dad. It's Dad's brother. That's what's bothering him. The proper time of mourning hasn't passed. Oh, most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. What's that phrase mean? With such dexterity.
With such speed?
Okay, he's already mentioned the speed part. What's it mean if you have dexterity? You're agile. Yeah. Like, oh, she's a gymnast, which can lead off to all kinds of weird stuff. Okay? She can get into bed a whole bunch of different ways, faster than anybody else. Again, what's that? That's telling us, Hamlet, Mom shouldn't be having sex yet. Maybe never, but definitely not yet. It's like the body's not even really cold. I mean, it is. It's been a month. But for Hamlet, that proper time of mourning isn't over. Almost wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. That's the problem. It is not, nor it cannot come to good. It's not good, and there is no way. That's why one of the reasons why he brought up, how's he put it? The everlasting and God. There's no way God can bring good out of this. His uncle and his mother dirtying the sheets. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. Why does he have to hold his tongue?
Because that's the king.
Okay, keep going.
I don't think it's necessarily he has to. I think he just doesn't want to talk about that.
Okay, but he says, I must.
Yeah.
So what's the must imply?
He doesn't put his mom in like a bad position.
Yeah.
Okay, true. I mean, it's not like you go out and tell your best friend, Mom's a slut. Because, the word will probably get around. I mean, it's before Twitter. And why else? Well, notice the first part. Break my heart.
He doesn't admit it to himself.
Possibly. What's going to happen if he doesn't let it out? His heart will be broken. I mean, he's telling us that. Okay? So, our opening soliloquy by Hamlet, our real introduction to Hamlet, shows us what about him? He is a seriously damaged individual. Okay? I don't mean damaged, sinful. This is a wounded person. This is someone who's morally, spiritually, emotionally wounded. He's having trouble coping. So, Horatio comes in. So this is Hamlet's mind frame. Break my heart, for I can't tell anybody. And what does Horatio come in and tell him? Saw you dead last night. Okay, Hamlet's heart is already broken. What's this going to do? Push him off the edge. Okay, so Hamlet says, glad to see you. Sees Bernardo, you too. And then he asks Horatio, why are you here? Why are you not in Wittenberg? Horatio was a student at Wittenberg, where Hamlet was a student. Remember, Claudius said, don't go back. I want you to stay here. Why? You're next in line. Truant disposition. That is, I haven't left yet. He goes, you liar. What is your affair in Elsinore? Why are you still here? I came to see your father's funeral. I prithee do not mock me, fellow student. I think it was to see my mother's wedding. Followed hard upon. You're right. I could see both in the one visit. It followed hard upon means, wow, she was fast. Or Claudius was fast, one of the two. What else does that imply? Doesn't explicitly state it. It implies, it suggests. It's fair for us to infer it.
That they were together before he was dead.
Something was happening in the background. Okay? So, notice how Hamlet follows Horatio. Thrift, Horatio. The funeral baked meats did coldly furnish forth the marriage tables. So the spread that they threw for the funeral party the next day were also served for the celebration after the wedding. Metaphorically the next day. Okay? Hamlet says, oh, my father. Methinks I see my father. Where? In my mind's eye. I saw him once, was a goodly king. There was a man taken for all in all. That is, warts and all. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't horrible. I shall not look upon his like again. They don't make him like that anymore. Horatio, saw him last night. Saw what? My lord, the king, your father. The king, my father? Season your admiration, that is, whoa, calm down. I think the season your admiration is because when Hamlet says, you saw the king, my father, he gets this look in his face. Which is why the Mel Gibson film was so disappointing. Because if you're familiar with Mel Gibson from his Lethal Weapon days, the guy doesn't have to say a word. And he can look out of this world, bat you know what crazy, just with his facial expressions. In playing Hamlet, he could have kind of got that, the eyes start moving and, whoa, calm down, Hamlet. Let me tell you what I saw. So he explains what Marcellus and Bernardo saw and how he doubted it. And then last night, we saw it again. Hamlet, 2:33. What looked he, frowningly? Was he upset? That's what frowningly means. Countenance more in sorrow than in anger. Pale or red? pale, his eyes fixed upon you most constantly. I wish I'd been there. So they say, come tonight. I mean, it's happened 3 nights in a row. Maybe it'll happen again. So, Hamlet says, 248 or so, if it assume, whatever this thing is, notice, if it assume my noble father's person, that is, by assume, if it take the shape of my father's body, I'll speak to it, though hell itself should gape and bid me hold my peace. Okay, so if hell should gape, that means open up before us and say, stop. What's Hamlet say he's going to do? Boom, I'm going to charge right in. I pray you all, if you have hitherto concealed this sight, let it be tenable in your silence still, and whatsoever else shall hap tonight, give it an understanding but no tongue. I will requite your loves, that is, I'll pay you nicely for it. Don't let anybody else know. So, I'll see you tonight at 12. They say, okay. They all leave. Hamlet gets another soliloquy. A little short one. My father's spirit in arms, that is, dressed to fight, dressed for war, all is not well. I doubt there means I expect or suspect. Something's got to be wrong. Would the night were come, then till then sit still my soul. Why is he telling his soul to sit still till then? Does the till mean then when midnight comes and I see the ghost, my soul can go crazy? No, it just means be calm. Foul deeds will rise, though all the earth o'erwhelm them to men's eyes. Chaucer uses the phrase, Nun's Prioress's Tale, I believe it is, murder will out. It was a medieval / Renaissance idea that somehow or other a murderer will out him or herself. Or the murdered person will out the other person. I mean, Chaucer's, Canterbury Tales, the little dead boy killed by the Jews, when people come into the room and says, I'm dead, the Jews killed me, the Jews killed me, etc. The dead corpse speaks, okay? So, 1-3. So we've seen the court, we've seen Hamlet's little brief interview with his mother and stepfather, and then we've seen Hamlet and his friends. Now we get Laertes and Ophelia. That is, we get another family. Okay? And Laertes and Ophelia talk. And notice immediately, Laertes asks Ophelia what? For Hamlet and the trifling of his favor hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward, not permanent, sweet, not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute. No, what's he getting at? You're just a plaything. This won't last. And she says, no more so? No more but so? Really? That's all it is? Think it no more. Why? I'm not going to read the whole speech, but he has a pretty long speech. And what's he saying in that? Hamlet is what? Prince, and therefore, what's going to come after? Future king. Hamlet, he uses the phrase, cannot carve for himself. He can't choose for himself who his wife will be. Why? Because whoever she will be has to be what? Equal rank, princess, and has to be approved. When Charles married Diana, Queen Elizabeth had to sign off on that. When William married Kate, Queen Elizabeth had to sign off on that. Harry and Meghan, not anymore. Why? Changed the law. No longer did a royal have to marry somebody else who was of noble blood. Kate Middleton, as middle class as her family is, and they're upper middle class, they make hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. I mean, they're the rich middle class. But Kate Middleton has a claim in the background. Okay? If I remember correctly. I could be wrong there. Diana definitely did. Lady Spencer. Okay? So, he says, 14, perhaps he loves you now. And now no soil nor coddle doth besmirch the virtue of his will. But you must fear his greatness way, that is the fact that he's a prince, his will is not his own. And there's that word will. And if you remember, one of the earlier plays, that's got a whole bunch of different meanings, right? One of those is volition. Another one's desire. Another one is sex organs. So it could apply to all those. He might think it's his, but it belongs to the state, and he can't put it where he wants. So, he may not, as unvalued persons do, carve for himself, for on his choice depends the safety and health of his whole What's he saying to his sister? His sister.
She's not worthy.
Yeah. Ophelia, you're not good enough. Why? She's not royal. She's the daughter of the king's advisor. Okay? So he says, skip down to 29, weigh what loss your honor may sustain if with too credent, too believable ear you listen to his songs, or lose your heart. Notice, if you pay attention to his songs, you might lose your mind, not literally, metaphorically. That is, he might, through his sweet talking, convince you, or you might lose your heart. He's moving from ear, south, heart, south. Or your chaste treasure open for virginity to his unmastered importunity. Be careful. That's why he's saying, don't be alone with Hamlet. He's a smooth talker, that one. He might get what he wants. Fear it. She says, oh, wow, okay. And then what? But do not, as some ungracious pastors do, ungracious, pastors lacking in grace, pastors, church shepherds do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, the narrow gate, whilst like a puffed and reckless libertine himself the primrose path, there's another phrase, of dalliance treads. Don't give me this double standard BS. Don't tell me because I'm a woman I can't sleep with whom I want to, while you go out and, spread your wild oats. And Rex not his own reed. Rex considers not his own reed counsel, advice. And he's like, of course I wouldn't. I follow my own advice. Okay? So, older brother gives younger sister a bit of advice. Then what happens? Dad comes in. Polonius comes in, father of both Laertes and Ophelia, and he gives Laertes advice. He is going to give Ophelia advice too. Okay? So what's his advice to Laertes? Now, a lot of scholars take this advice as not being good advice. I think they're entirely wrong. Almost everything Polonius says here could have come straight out of the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament. Everything he says is good advice. What's the problem? Ophelia alluded to it. Bingo. He doesn't follow his own advice. He's like one of those pastors who depicts the steep and thorny way to heaven, but doesn't take that way himself. In other words, that person is a what?
Hypocrite.
It's a hypocrite.
Is that why scholars think that it's not good advice? Because
Frankly, I don't understand why they don't think it's good advice. Well, part of it's because of his character.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, define Polonius' character. What's his job? He's advisor to the king. If you're an advisor to the king, the or ending, it comes from ancient Latin. It means masculine agent of. So if you're a masculine agent of, the first part of the word, advise, that means you give advice. It's his job to give advice. And yet, what does he say here? One of the things is, keep your mouth shut. Don't tell people your thoughts. Keep them to yourself. Listen to what everybody else says. And if other people, we're going to go through it in just a moment, take what other people say about you, but don't respond. And in the course of the play, what does he do? He's constantly speaking into the king's ear. He's constantly insinuating himself in other people's quarrels. That's why he gets what he has coming to him. So, Laertes is getting ready to go off to Paris. And line 58, Polonius says, take these few precepts, and these few precepts in thy memory look thou character. That doesn't mean these few precepts, these few teachings in thy memory look thou character. That is, look in your memory and remember your character. That's not what he means. That is what Mufasa means when he says to Simba, remember who you are. Because I think the screenwriters, if they were familiar with this, they didn't understand what the play meant. Character there means right. Right. In your memory, write down these few precepts. We're going to see somebody else write something in his memory. Okay? Hamlet's going to talk to his father, the ghost of his father, and the ghost of his father is going to say some things, and Hamlet's going to say, all saws, all tables, everything I've learned before. Wipe it all clean. Find Hillary's bleach pit. Bleach it all clean. And then do what? I'm going to write down one thing. Kill Claudius. Okay? So, here's the precepts. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. How did we see Hamlet finish his first soliloquy? I must be silent. Hamlet's already practicing this. So he says, break my heart, for I must keep silent. Well, Polonius tells his son, give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. What's an unproportioned thought? What do you do when you proportion something? Louder?
Even it out.
Even it out? Measure it out? You find its beginning, its middle, its end. Okay? So an unproportioned thought is a thought that you haven't seen to the end of. Is a thought that you haven't figured things out yet. It's Donald Trump on Twitter, right? Thought comes into his mind. And then, doubles up and triples up and quadruples up later, etc. Okay? And I'm not knocking Trump. I mean, that's kind of what he does. Okay? So, nor any unproportioned thought his act. What's he talking about, thoughts and actions? Christ says all actions come from where? Thoughts. Every thought, every action comes from an idea first. The idea can be impulsive, as in the case of Oedipus. Oedipus acts instantly when he thinks an idea. The advice? Don't act instantly. Think before you act. We could jump to the scene where Hamlet is talking with his mother in his mother's bedroom. His mother gets a little worried. She cries out, and Hamlet hears behind the arras the curtain, which means Polonius is on the stage. Even though he's behind the curtain, he hears a noise and he goes, "A rat!" He stabs without thinking. And then afterwards he says, "Is it the king? Oops, not the king. I took you for your better." Okay? So, keep your mouth shut and don't do anything without thinking it through first. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Like that. What do you mean, be familiar, but not vulgar? How many of you have had a party before? Thrown a party, and you say the party goes from 7 to midnight. And at midnight, you want everybody to pretty much be gone. I'm old, so mine are like 7 to 10, okay? And there's always that one person or that one couple. You're sitting there yawning, and that's happened before. My wife goes and gets your pajamas on. Pretty much, signal, and they just won't shut up and leave. That's being vulgar. It's not vulgarity as in the kind of speech. It's overly common. Be familiar, be known, but not too known. Those friends thou hast, and their adoption tried. That is, and you've proved their friendship. Well, how do you prove someone's friendship? Do you put a test out there for them? No. How do they prove their friendship? How many of you want these kinds of friends? Everything's going wonderful. Your bank account's fat. You can go out for lunch. You buy. Go out for dinner. You buy. And then you lose your job and you lose all your money. And they don't show up anymore. And they're not around anymore. Those aren't friends whose adoption you have tried. Okay? So, the friends that you have, and you've proved their friendship, grapple them unto thy soul with hoops of steel. Tie them, bind them to you. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new hatched unfledged courage. Beware, before we get to the beware. So what's the new unhatched unfledged courage? I know people who think some of their quote-unquote social media friends are their best friends. Utter bullshit. Unless that best friend, happens to be the person you've known all your life, and they also happen to be a social media friend. But if the social media friend is someone you've never physically seen, not a picture on a screen, physically, someone you've physically in person talked, they can't be quote unquote best friends. So the do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new hatched unfledged courage. Don't make everybody your friend. He's really saying, have what? Have a few friends.
Quality over quantity.
Oh, yeah. But make them really good friends. People who over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 friends on social media. I've got like 30. Why? Because I have fewer than that real friends. And some of these friends are people I knew 30 and 40 years ago and have not seen literally in 30 years. So, now beware. Beware of entrance to a quarrel. Don't get in a fight. But, being in, you get in a fight, do what? Shock and awe, baby. You get into that quarrel, you do what?
You win.
You win. You win. you bear it, that is, you handle that quarrel, that the opposed may beware of thee. That the opposed, the person who's arguing against you, knows what? Yeah, just stay away. C.S. Lewis, apparently, some people have said was like that. He was the kind of person, because of how he was trained before he went to university, when he had a private tutor. He was trained so that, if somebody said, it's a nice day today, he would jump down that person's throat. What do you mean it's a nice day? How is it a nice day? And we see an element of that aspect of Lewis in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. Remember, Tolkien and Lewis were close friends. The very beginning of The Hobbit, when Gandalf shows up on Bilbo's door, and Bilbo says, "Good day." And Gandalf says, "Well, what do you mean, good day? Do you mean it's a day in which to be good? Do you mean that the day itself is good? Do you mean that you wish the day will be good?" And Bilbo's like, "Get the hell out of here. This is not a good day." And he says, "Good day." And he goes, "And now you mean good day to me, go away, you're bothering me." That's probably, Tolkien's basing that on Lewis. Lewis couldn't take little everyday comments, apparently. Okay? So, when you get into a quarrel, make it so that the people know, never do that again. Give every man thy ear. And I would love to see a Monty Python version of this. Because they would, or Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks would be even better. You'd have them pull off their ears, okay, and hand it to them. What's that mean, give every man thy ear? Listen. Somebody speaks to you, listen to what they say, but few thy voice. If there is one piece of advice I could give Donald Trump, it would be that. That would be the one. Listen to what everybody says, but don't respond. Donald Trump's fat. I'm not as fat as, Rosie O'Donnell or whatever. I mean, he just immediately picks up somebody who's fatter than him, and etc. He just can't take criticism of any kind. This advice is, especially the next line, take all criticism. Okay? Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. And maybe that's why scholars tend not to like this. Because what has he just said?
He said, listen to everyone, but don't speak a lot, and also take everyone's criticisms, but also your own judgment is probably what's best.
Okay.
Reserve
everything except for the last part about judgment.
Yeah, reserve that judgment means just keep your judgment to yourself. Don't tell them what you feel.
It really means don't respond. Yeah. Right? Because what do you do when someone tears into you? What do you immediately want to do?
Fight back.
Oh, yeah? Verbally, both barrels. That's why I said that's what Trump needs to hear. Everything, boom, respond. Bad advice, good advice. That's pretty good advice. Pretty good. What does it mean, take every man's censure? Does it mean accept it?
Just view all sides of the argument and whatnot before.
It's not even before.
Right.
Because it's don't offer your own judgment. It means listen to what everyone says. The censure is about you. So listen to every man's censure. Doesn't mean accept it. But if you're listening to it, what do you automatically do, really? You evaluate it. Is it right? Is it wrong? I was talking in my previous class about papers, because they got papers back, and a lot of their papers were not great. I mean, there were F's, or I don't even think that one had any D's. But I said, I had several years ago, a couple decades ago, I had a graduate student, a doctoral student, who was nearly done with her doctoral program. I wasn't her major professor, somebody else was. But she had turned in a paper for a class that she had with me, and she got a D. This was back when I was a real hard ass. And I gave a lot of earned low grades, okay, for graduate students. She got a D. Okay. Prior to getting that paperback, she was very chatty with me all the time. She was a teacher in McMinnville or something like that. I don't know, 10, 20 years older than me at least. Yeah, at least. And I mean, from the moment she got that paperback, silence. I'd see her in the halls the following semester and never heard a word from her. Okay. And several months later, I got an email from another student who had been in that class who maintained good friendship and stuff with her. And she said, so-and-so wanted you to know. She never contacted me directly. That when she got that D in your class, she was so angry. And she remained angry for like 6 months. She goes, but when she began writing her dissertation, she reread the comments in your paper and she realized, right. And nobody had ever pointed out these kinds of errors that she was making. She would just get papers back with hardly any comments A. Well, when I get papers back, even if it's an A paper, it's got comments all over it, usually. Okay? She took that censure and noticed it didn't sit well at first, but took it to heart. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy. What's thy habit? Now that, strictly speaking, religious clothing. The habit like a monk's habit or a nun's habit. Okay, that's the kind of clothing they wear. He just means your clothing. So, wear what you can afford. If you can't afford Saks Fifth Avenue, go to Marshall's. Or something like that, where you can buy Saks Fifth Avenue on discount, etc. Why? For the, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy. Rich, well-made, high quality, but not Elton John. What would you think if you saw a classmate come in one day, looked like Elton John or Elvis, or if you're familiar with him, probably none of you are, Liberace? You'd kind of probably, if he sat down next to Bjorn might go, it might be catching. I'm going to move over there in the back. Okay? Why? For the apparel oft proclaims the man. And that is an idea that I don't know, maybe you guys don't, but I have always, from probably the age of 12 or 13, when the notion first popped into my mind, rebelled against. The idea that your clothing says something about you. So I would intentionally show up, in college in the rattiest stuff I could wear. And what would professors do? Apparel oft proclaimeth the man. They kind of make an opinion right there. Even though all of Shakespeare's plays are largely about at least what one theme? Appearance versus reality. He's not saying it shouldn't be that way. He's just saying, what do we all do? We make judgments based upon first impressions. I would not wear this to a job interview for another professorship somewhere. I might wear it if I were retiring from here and wanting to get a job at Home Depot or Woodcraft or something like that. Okay? And they in France, and so he goes on and talks about French custom. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulleth edge of husbandry. Okay? Several components to that. Don't borrow money, don't lend money. Why? Because if you borrow money, what's dulleth the edge of husbandry? What's husbandry? Literally, it's animal raising. Like breeding cattle, breeding horses and such. What's it really mean, though? It's not its literal meaning, but its metaphorical meaning. Hard work. I mean, think about it. Why should I go work hard if I can borrow the money? I mean, if the government will give me money, why should I work? Well, if you don't work, if you borrow, it dulls the desire to do hard work. Okay? So what about the loan? And loan loses oft both itself and friend. Anybody had that happen? You loaned a friend some money, and the friend doesn't pay you back. Okay, if it's $1 or $2, not a big deal. Can I borrow $100? I'm a little late on my rent. And you don't get paid back. And you ask the friend for the money back. Oh, I'll pay up. Well, what tends to happen to that friendship's shot? Make it a gift, not a loan. In other words, this above all, that is, what comes next above everything else I've read. So if you can't remember any of this other stuff, if you haven't caricatured it in your mind, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as night to day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. What does that mean, to thine own self be true? Be true to yourself. Thank you. So what's that mean? What's he saying every person should do, or what should his son do?
Stand by his principles.
Stand by his principles, assuming he has them. Right? Famous joke is, if you don't like these principles, I have others.
Isn't there probably some meaning in that too, to be true to who comes before him?
Probably. There's a saying about children of Chinese mothers. The mothers are tigers. Why? Because they have to do exactly what the mother says. The mother will, if they don't. Okay? So, be true to yourself. And notice, if you are true to, as Layla said, your principles, your moral core, whatever that core is, because my moral core might be different than Caleb's, which is different than Bjorn, which is different. They can go around the room. Okay? But if you are true to what you are inside, then you can't be false to anybody else. That's the problem for Polonius. He's not true to his core. He doesn't really follow any of these. He gives his thoughts voice. He doesn't take other people's censure. He does enter into quarrels lightly, etc., etc. I don't know if he lends money or borrows money or things like that. Okay? So, Laertes leaves. And Polonius asks Ophelia, so what were you and your brother talking about? She says, Hamlet, well, what about him? Oh, he's tendered signs of affection. Line 100, he hath, my lord, of late made many tenders of his affection to me. What's meant by tenders? What did Demetrius do to Helena, Nadar's daughter? He courted her. He gave her songs. He gave her flowers. He gave her food. He did the whole dating thing. And even was betrothed to her. So he made tenders of his affection. Hamlet's given her poems. In fact, we're going to see later in the play, she's going to come back to Hamlet. She's going to go, here, take these back. He's going to, not mine. Oh, my lord, but they are yours. You gave them. He goes, it wasn't me. Affection. You speak like a green girl, unsifted in such perilous circumstance. Why perilous? You take those tenders of affection too closely, and she might lose her virginity. Do you believe these tenders, as you call them? I do not know, my lord, what I should think. A lot of people, a lot of critics have made sport of the fact that Ophelia's name begins with a big fat O. How do you represent, what does that represent numerically? Nothing. She's a big zero. Not a lot going on up here. I don't think it's really that. I think here, when she says, I do not know, my lord, what I should think, she's a little confused now, because what if her brother just told her? Hamlet doesn't love you. He wants sex. Which is why Kenneth Branagh's version of the film, or of the play, I think has problems. Because Kenneth Branagh's version has Hamlet, I almost said Polonius, talking about incest, has Hamlet and Ophelia having sex. And the play makes it pretty clear, I think at least, they don't have sex. They want to. Both of them want to, but they don't. So she's like, I don't know what to think. Because he's now implying, Tinder doesn't affect you. Come on, girl. You're wiser than that. So he goes, okay, I'll teach you. Let me tell you what to think. And what's he now doing? Giving her advice. And what advice does he give her? Not good advice. Why? What's his advice based on? Fear, possibly. What else? He looks at Hamlet through the lens of his own actions. He says, Hamlet's a man. I'm a man. Therefore, Hamlet's going to act like me. That's a false syllogism. So, think yourself a baby that you obtained these tenders for true pay, which are not sterling. You've taken them for IOUs. They're not real money. She says, but he hath importuned me with love in honorable fashion. That is, he hasn't done anything untoward. He hasn't groped me. He hasn't me too, stuff. Fashion. He hath given countenance to his speech, my lord, with almost all the holy vows of heaven. Notice, almost. Almost only counts in two things, horseshoes, hand grenades. It doesn't count in courting. Because almost all the holy vows of heaven, what would one of those vows include? Marriage, engagement. Will you marry me? She says, yes, they're engaged at that moment. Okay? That is a holy vow. It's not yet finished. The marriage rite hasn't occurred, okay? But it's a holy vow. She says, almost. Springs to catch woodcocks. Traps to catch birds. That's what the woodcock is. Well, what's one of the nicknames of girls in England? Birds. So Shakespeare uses that imagery. So he says, I know when the blood burns, how prodigal the soul lends the tongue vows. He's saying, well, yeah, I remember doing that. Hamlet's like me. He's trying to sleep with my daughter. Be something scanter of your maiden presence. Stay away from him. Set your entreatments at a higher rate. Don't believe his vows, for they are brokers. His vows, what's the modern word there for brokers? His vows are pimps. His words are to pimp you out to him. Wow. That's, man. Ladies, imagine your father saying this about some guy you were interested in. I don't, maybe he has. I shouldn't even go there. Never mind. I saw some weird expressions, so I thought, okay, we'll just leave that one alone.
Epiphany should not be the...
Especially, there are mere implorators of unholy suits breathing like sanctified and pious bawds. What's a bawd? A madam. The better to beguile. He's just trying to trick you. He wants one thing and one thing only. Sex. All men So 1-4. Hamlet and the others come in, and the ghost comes in. Horatio, look, Hamlet. Line 38. Good Lord, we're not getting get through Act 1. Hamlet, angels and ministers of grace defend us. No, that's a prayer. Angels and ministers of grace. Now, ministers of grace is usually taken to be other angels. What else can it be, though? A minister of grace is something that delivers grace. Well, in the Catholic theological tradition, that can be priest here.
Wouldn't that be like a saint?
Yes. Because in the Catholic tradition, Catholic and Orthodox traditions, everybody has a patron saint. So angels, and everybody has a guardian angel. So guardian angel, deliver me, and whoever, Saint Hamlet, deliver me. But it's here us. Why? Because there's more than just Hamlet there. Be thou a spirit of health or goblin damned, bring with thee heirs from heaven, or blast from hell, be thy intents wicked or charitable, thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. That is, I don't care where you come from. If you're a spirit of good health or a goblin, damned. If you come from heaven or hell, if your intent towards us is wicked, that is to drag us down to hell, or charitable, designed to help us up to heaven, I don't care. You look like Dad. I'm going to talk to you. I'll call thee Hamlet, King, Father, Royal Dane. Answer me. Tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death. What's it mean, canonized? If a person is canonized in the Catholic Church, that means that person is raised to the level of a saint. Same kind of thing in the Orthodox Church. There are several recent elders in the Orthodox Church who were made saints recently by the Ecumenical Patriarch. Here he's talking about not somebody made into a saint. He's not saying, my dad was a saint. He's not saying that. So how can his bones be canonized? The funeral service. It's an elaborate service. Okay? And one of the things that's done in that funeral service is the blessing and hallowing, essentially, of the body. Why? For what purpose? To prepare it for the resurrection. Okay? Where are your bones that were canonized? They were made holy when they were put into the ground. Hearsed in death. Why have they burst their cerements? Why have they come out of their container? Why the sepulchre wherein we saw thee quietly inurned hath oped his ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again? Notice he doesn't say, who dug you up? Why are you here? What may this mean, that thou, dead corpse, again in complete steel, revisits thus the glimpses of the moon, making night hideous, and we fools of nature so horridly to shake our disposition with thoughts beyond the reaches of our souls? Why are you here? I mean, you have perplexed me out of reason, he's saying. It's fitting that the ghost comes at night, right? During the full moon. Because Hamlet's saying, you're making me lunatic. Why are you here? And the ghost does this. How do we know? Because Horatio says it beckons you to go away with it. That's stage direction. So Hamlet says, I'm going to follow it. Horatio, no, don't. Why? I do not set my life at a pin's fee. I'm not worth a pin. I don't care if I die. And for my soul, what can a ghost do to my soul? Being a thing immortal as itself. The ghost can't harm my soul, Hamlet is saying. Is Hamlet saying his soul is quote unquote Jesus he saved? I'm going to die and go to heaven? No, he's just saying my soul will go on. true if one accepts Christian theology. The question becomes not will the soul, but where? Horatio, don't. It might deprive you of your rationality. It might draw you into madness and such. Horatio, be ruled, you shall not go. Hamlet, I'm going. Unhand me, gentlemen. They grab hold of him, and he fights them off. So Hamlet goes off, 1-5. Wilt thou speak to me? And the ghost speaks. Mark me. Mark, pay attention. Look at me carefully. My hour is almost come when I to sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself. Ooh, sulphur flame makes us think. Hell, the fiery lake of brimstone that's talked about, in Revelation and stuff. But that's eternal. That's permanent. You don't get to take breaks from that and go off to, Earth and party around. Alas, poor ghost. Don't pity me. Lend thy serious hearing to what I speak. I am bound to hear, so art thou to revenge. Ooh, there is revenge tragedy kicking in. I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast in fires. Fast means to partake of. It means to participate in. It means to be bound in, to be fast bound. Okay? Till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. So where is he during the day? He's in purgatory. Not a Protestant belief. Not a Calvinist belief. That's Act 1, Scene 1, Catholic belief. I mean, it's central to Catholic belief. So the ghost at least is saying, I'm a Catholic. Shakespeare writes this in 1601. Catholics are not looked upon positively. I don't think the audience goes, oh, he's a damn Catholic and that's why he's in purgatory. Because they would go, if they're Protestant, wait, there is no purgatory. How can he be? Anyways, can't tell you about that place. So he goes on. And he says, revenge his, thy father's, foul and most unnatural murder. Murder most foul. As in the best it is, that is, the very best murder is foul. Tell me. So, the ghost explains how he was killed. Lying in his garden one afternoon, his brother came in, poured poison into his ear. He died. They gave out, oh, he's bit by a snake. Right? Skip a bunch. And the ghost says, line 92, remember me. Well, remember what Polonius said to Laertes. In thy memory, write these precepts. The ghost now says, remember me. Hamlet. Oh, you host of heaven, O earth. So what has he just done? He's combined heaven and earth. What else? What else can I couple? What else can I bind together? Let's see. Hell? Yeah, let's do that too. Hold my heart. Well, he already said at the end of his first soliloquy, break my heart, because he has to do what? He has to hold his tongue. Now, he's got to hold his tongue, and he's got to say, come on, don't break yet, heart. And you, my sinews, grow not instant old and bear me. Remember you? Ah, that poor ghost. While his memory holds a seat in this distracted globe. What's the distracted globe? And Hamlet should point to his head there. Notice the globe is distracted. What's it mean to be distracted? You look at your phone during class. You look out a window. You get not paying attention. Not being focused. Why is his globe distracted? Is it because there's a ghost in front of him telling him I was murdered?
Everything.
It goes back to the beginning. He's distracted at the beginning of the play. Why? Because mom's hopping in and out of bed with his uncle, for one thing. His dad's dead, for enough. I mean, that would be enough, wouldn't it? Your father died, had a student, one of my evening classes, 10 minutes before class. My father died suddenly. It's like, don't worry about class, For the rest of the semester, don't worry about class. Yea, from the table of my, well, let me go back for a second. So the ghost says, avenge me. But then he says, don't do anything to your mother. Top of page 1108. This is 79 and following. So leave your mother to heaven. Line 86. Taint not thy mind, nor let thy soul contrive against thy mother aught. What does it mean to taint something? What do you do when you have a gallon of white paint? How can you taint that?
Put other colors in it.
You can drop a drop of black paint, and it's no longer white. If it's blue, you can drop white. It's no longer blue. It doesn't take much. A drop taints it. It removes the perfection. Taint not thy mind. Okay? That's a command of the ghost. Go back to Hamlet. From the table of my memory, I'll wipe away all trivial fond records. Trivial, foolish records. That is, things that are written in his mind. What kind of things are written in his mind? All saws of books. Saws means sayings, wise things. The kind of stuff you get from literature books or textbooks or any books. All forms. What are forms? Our minds are full of images that we've seen. So, can you erase all those? All pressures past. He's talking about imprintings. Things imprinted in his mind, that youth and observation copied there, and thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain. What did the ghost say? Taint not your mind. Hamlet's going, taint? I'm going to completely recolor the damn thing. I'm going to repaint my mind entirely, and it's going to say what? Kill Claudius. You bother mom. Unmixed with baser, everything else becomes base to him. Okay? So, the others come back in, and Hamlet says, I have one request from you. They're like, what is it? 151. Never make known what you have seen tonight. Oh, no, we won't tell anybody. And Hamlet said, no, you got to swear on my sword. And they're like, okay. And then we hear the ghost, swear. They swear again. And they move around across the stage because you got to swear here and there and here. We're serious now about the swearing part, okay? So, Hamlet says, when Horatio, 173, oh, day and night, but this is wondrous strange. In other words, there's never been a day and night like this. Never seen anything like this before. And therefore, as a stranger give it welcome, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. It's thought that Horatio is a Stoic. What does Stoicism essentially teach? Anybody know?
Don't show emotion.
Don't show emotion. There is no heaven and hell. There's nothing that comes after. And you should just maintain an even keel in this life. Don't get really angry. Don't get really happy. Don't get really sad. Just, kind of think of an EKG. Be dead, okay? Be dead to the world. So he says, but should I later come here as before, 178, never, so help you mercy, how strange or odd some'er I bear myself. That is, from this point on, if I act kind of weird, that you, at such time, seeing me, never shall, with arms encumbered thus, that is kind of like going, look at him. Or this head shake, or by pronouncing of some doubtful phrase, well, we know what's going on. We could tell you if we would. Don't show that you know aught of me. Why? Because he says, I shall hereafter think meet to put an antic disposition on. What's antic there? Little bit crazy. Okay, so he tells us, I'm going to act crazy at times. And don't kind of go, here's Hamlet acting crazy again. Don't let anybody know. So everything after this, you've got to decide. Is Hamlet acting? Or is it real? Is it the real Hamlet? Or is it the Hamlet putting on an antic disposition? Okay. They all leave. Excuse me, before they leave, Hamlet says, the time is out of joint. O cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. Think of that great chain of being. Well, time exists in that great chain of being too. Why? Because time is something created. So what happens? You take one link out. Everything goes all wobbly. Hamlet says, I was born for what purpose? To fix the link. He's saying there, I'm the sacrifice. I'm the thing that's got to be killed to fix all this. Okay? So, 2-1. Couple minutes. Polonius comes in, and he's telling Reynaldo, a servant of his, to do something. What? He's sending him where and for what purpose?
To France. Check on the son.
Sending him to Paris to, that's a nice way of putting it, to check on his son. Is he going to go up and go, so, Laertes, how you doing? No, he's going to spy on him. Okay? And Ophelia comes in. What's the matter? She says, oh, my lord, I've been so affrighted. With what? As I was sewing in my closet, Lord Hamlet, with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, that is, his stockings not tied up here, but fallen down to his ankles, his doublet untied, showing his chest hair and such, his stockings fouled, ungartered, down jiving to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous, he comes before me. He comes into her room. Mad for thy love? I don't know. Well, what did he do? And so he takes her by the wrist, and he does what? He took me by the wrist, held me hard. Then goes he to the length of all his arms. So she's standing here. He grabs this hand. So he's holding this, and he does this. 2 or 3 times. And falls to such perusal of my face as I would draw it. Long stayed he so, at last a little shaking of mine arm, thrice his head thus waving up and down, he raised a sigh so piteous and profound, and then goes out. He's in love. He is mad. That is, he's gone crazy. Why? What was his advice to his daughter? Stay away from him. You stayed away from him, and that's driven him crazy. So what would be the best remedy? Lock them up in a room together, get a room. But that's not what they're going to do. And we don't have time to do anything else. So we will pick up with 2-2. Yay, we got through Act 1. So we're going to end up having to drop something. I don't know what. Probably the sonnets. Which I don't want to, but...
Kind of have to do Lear.
Yeah, we got to do Lear.